Bleach episode 22 slows down the breakneck pacing that we've had from the last couple of episodes where 8 or even 7 chapters had been adapted into one episode. Thankfully, this week we have less than 5 chapters adapted. Now there are several anime exclusive scenes this week with several minor omissions and some scenes that haven't been adapted but saved for later episodes. But for the most part, this was a very strong episode which remains faithful to the manga material. Before the intro song, we have some of chapter 587 adapted as we continue with Ichigo and company reacting to Uryu leaving with Yhwach. After the intro, we get a couple of new anime exclusive scenes, the first featuring Byakuya and the second catching up with Komamura. The first half of the episode adapts up until the beginning of chapter 590 and the second half adapts until the end of chapter 592. Like I mentioned, some scenes are not adapted so that they can include them into later episodes, but for the most part a lot of stuff has been retained from the manga, even including comedic moments. Speaking of comedic moments, there was one big omission which I am not sure how fans will feel about, but I'll be talking about it in greater detail within the video. Rest assured, I'm going to be going over every cut, change and addition that has been made, and as always I'm going to refrain from talking about any scenes which are one-to-one adapted from the manga, and I'm only going to be focusing on what has been cut, changed and added to the anime. Understandably, there is a lot to cover, so without further delay, here is my manga versus anime comparison for episode 22 of Bleach's 1000-Year Blood War arc anime. The episode begins by adapting the first half of chapter 587 before the intro song. During this sequence, we get a brief anime-only scene where Shunsui reacts to Hashward, Uryu and Yhwach leaving for the royal palace. His new lines of dialogue build upon the new scenes in the anime where Shunsui expresses his doubt about Ichibe's true intentions. He asks why Yhwach didn't just shoot down the royal palace, as he then asks if they are going to be welcomed to the royal palace instead, as he refers to Ichibe as the high priest and asks if everything is going according to his plan, confirming my theory from earlier episodes that Ichibe had planned for Yhwach to make his way to the royal palace. We then return to Ichigo and the others with some comedic moments being cut from the anime where Chad throws Ichigo to get him to snap out of his funk. Instead, the anime skips this page and has Chad speaking to him about how they are also just as shocked about Uryu and he must have had his reasons for joining the other side. The anime gives some new lines of dialogue to Ichigo here that are not in the manga. After he tells Chad that he is right, he says that ever since the start of the battle against the Quincy, he has been thinking about this, wondering if this was going to be a battle between the Shinigami and the Quincy, then what would this mean for him and Uryu, who will be on opposing sides. The anime does a fantastic job of showing us past sequences of Uryu helping Ichigo and the others, really setting the emotional tone here, with Ichigo saying despite everything they have always been fighting side by side for a long time, and regardless of whatever they have just seen, Ichigo affirms that Uryu is still their friend. He states that he doesn't know what Uryu is thinking, as Chad says that they have decided what they are going to do nonetheless, as we cut back to manga material with Ichigo saying that they will chase Uryu down and ask him why he is with Yhwach, and if he doesn't give them a good enough reason, then they will just smack him and bring him back. Now following this, we cut to the intro song as the episode then begins. The episode begins by adapting the first half of chapter 587 before the intro song. Surprisingly, we get another anime exclusive scene here as we kick things off with Byakuya being confronted by the 3 Sternritter Nanana, Candice and Robert, as Byakuya wonders wasn't it the aim of the Quincy to destroy the Serite, as he watches Yhwach and company leave for the royal palace, thinking what on earth are they planning to do. Nanana appears reminding him that they are not dead yet, with Candice emerging asking where Ichigo has gone, before Robert also arrives to surround Byakuya. Hopefully we will get to see Byakuya have some extended sequences here, as I would love to see him take part in an anime exclusive 3 vs 1 battle hopefully next week or the week after. Immediately following this, we see Iba and Komamura, who if you recall had transformed into a wolf following the humanization technique which he had used to defeat Bambietta. Komamura in his beast form continues walking to the Quincy fortress in this anime exclusive scene. During this moment, Iba is seen asking if his captain can lend him a hand, and Best Boy Komamura gets back up on his paws and continues walking. Now this highlights that Komamura can still somewhat understand what is being said to him, but he is unable to respond. This was confirmed within Can't Feel Your Own World, but it's nice to have confirmation of this here within the anime too, as Iba wonders if Komamura agrees to what he has just said and how much of the words that he says he can understand. So following this, we cut back to manga material from chapter 587, and it continues from what we had seen from the start of the episode, where we see Renji protecting Rukia from a massive boulder. Now this ties together perfectly with the manga content which immediately follows it, where Renji asks Rukia if she is okay before they're confronted by Bazz-B. Chapter 587 ends with Yhwach, Uryu and Hashwad arriving at the royal palace, but episode 22 doesn't adapt this, as instead the last material that we see from this chapter is the blast following Bazz-B activating Burner Finger 4. So continuing with the rearrangement of scenes, the first half of episode 588 is also not adapted into this week's episode. The cut manga material showcases the arrival of Yhwach and company within the royal palace, as the members of the Zero Division react to that arrival, with Yhwach summoning the soldat to begin the invasion. However, they are quickly confronted by Korinji, who briefly showcases his ability to use his hot spring water to eliminate the soldat, before he then charges towards Yhwach. Again, none of this is adapted into episode 22, and I am assuming that they will save this for the end of episode 23 or even for episode 24. So instead of these scenes involving Yhwach, we instead cut to the midpoint of chapter 588, where we see Giselle being confronted by Ikkaku and Yumichika. The remainder of chapter 588 was faithfully adapted into the anime, and they have even left in Yumichika's comments about Giselle, which I honestly thought were going to be removed from this week's episode. I don't doubt that there will be some upset Twitter users about this, but I for one am glad that comedic scenes like this were left intact. When we cut back to Ichigo and the others, as Urahara prepares to fire them to the royal palace with a cannon built under the Squad 12 barracks, we get some new lines of dialogue during the conversation at the start of chapter 589. In an anime exclusive exchange, Ichigo asks if anyone else will be coming with them, but Urahara says that the other captains are still preoccupied with the Sternritter that are still in the Serite. Orihime also has some new lines of dialogue added here, which fleshes out the scene more, like asking about how the cannon is going to fire them, but then Akon appears to tell Urahara that Yoriichi has returned. Now before Yoriichi appears, there are in fact 3.5 pages worth of manga content that are cut from the anime, which is a comedic scene where Chad asks Ichigo about Orihime's outfit. He embarrassingly says that he thinks that she is revealing too much, before Orihime freaks out, worrying that Ichigo is going to think that she is some sort of a freak. He then learns that it was Urahara's decision to make Orihime wear the outfit, as he had convinced her that Ichigo would like her wearing something like this. They are then interrupted by Yoriichi, who abruptly cuts into the scene in a very unique manner, as then the rest of the scene has her scolding Ichigo and telling him what he should have said to Orihime instead. Now all of this is omitted as the anime cuts straight to business, with Urahara telling Akon to move on to the next step of the plan before he welcomes Yoriichi back, asking if she was successful with her mission. We then learn that she's been collecting energy from distortions that have appeared at the boundary of the world of the living during the Quincy invasion of the Soul Society. Urahara believes that the distortion was created to cause confusion amongst the Shinigami and to divide up their forces, but through Yoriichi's investigation, they had discovered that a large amount of energy is created the moment that the distortion appears and the moment that it disappears. This energy is large enough to connect the two worlds. Now this scene is expanded within the anime to include new lines from Hiyori and the Vizards, as well as Yoriichi being more involved in the conversation too. The manga just had Urahara explaining the situation to Ichigo and the others, but the anime does a better job to explain the distortions here. This makes up for the cutscenes from way back in episode 1, where we see Hiyori spot a distortion while she is walking. Also, this entire moment involves everyone instead of it being an explanation dump from Urahara, as it also includes Yoriichi complaining at the end about Urahara. The first half of the episode adapts up to the start of chapter 590 after Mayuri asks Giselle if she knows that great people are often seen to be shining, as she responds that she wasn't asking about why he was shining, as we then cut to the mid-card. The rest of chapter 590 is adapted faithfully into the anime, with the appearance of the resurrected Arrancar marking the end of material from chapter 590. Half a page of manga material is not adapted from chapter 591, and it's where the resurrected Arrancar are being electrocuted, and each of them react, with Dardoni saying that he is already trying to kill them, Saruchi yelling that she knew that they couldn't trust him, and lastly Luffy whining that he didn't even say anything. Mayuri reassures them that there will be no adverse effects to their body after they have been electrocuted, because he is simply sending an electrical impulse into their brain which stimulates the pain receptors in the brain, as Dardoni says that this is actually worse than being electrocuted. The anime instead cuts to the chase here, with Mayuri saying that he is pleased that the resurrected Arrancar turned out to be more durable than he had anticipated. Episode 22 ends by adapting all the way up until the end of chapter 591 as we see Giselle summon a zombified Hitsugaya to her aid. Unlike episode 21, this week's episode ended with a poem for episode 23, which is titled Marching Out the Zombies 2. My prediction that they will be adapting 5 or less chapters per episode from now on appears to be correct so far. I do hope that they continue with this pacing because there were several anime exclusive scenes in this episode, along with scenes that flesh out the manga material by giving other characters some additional lines and overall building upon the source material in a positive manner. So much happened this week as we had new anime only scenes involving Shunsui, Byakuya and Komomura, as well as a lot of the comedic moments being retained within the anime, and we also got to see the Vizards make an appearance, which is always a good thing in my opinion. So what were your thoughts on episode 22 Marching Out the Zombies? I know that it was an episode that spent a fair bit of time setting the stage for the next major battles that are about to unfold, but I still think that it was an overall strong episode that was well paced and had me glued to the screen. There was a fair bit of anime exclusive scenes here, surprisingly a lot of comedic relief and some scenes which they are clearly saving for later as Yhwach and company make their big arrival to the royal palace. I really loved seeing more of the sequences between Mayuri and Giselle, and I thought that they were all really well animated, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what zombified Hitsugaya will bring to the table next week. With 4 episodes left to go and 3 weeks of Bleach Core 2 remaining, what are your thoughts as we enter the final phase of this season? Did you enjoy episode 22? Was it worth waiting an additional week for? What did you think about the anime exclusive scenes this week? I look forward to reading all of your thoughts and comments on Marching Out the Zombies, and lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you next week for my episode 23 review.
If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.